Okay, once you have all your images into your folder, you can go back to Atom. What we're going to do at this point is we're going to set up our basic HTML page. And then we're going to start thinking about how we want to structure it and then sticking our copy into it. Okay, all the text and information from the Wikipedia article. Sound good? Okay. All right, so in the HTML file, you can just type in HTML. You should get a little drop down like that. That comes up. If you hit enter, it's going to give you what's called a boilerplate. This is just a template of all the little tags that you need in here. So just type, yep, there you go. So type in HTML and hit enter, and you should get this nice little bit of HTML. So some stuff that we're looking on here, this is language, it's English. The direction of the text is left to right. That's what LTR stands for. Inside the head, we have what is the meta? What character set are we using to show our text? Well, we're using UTF-8, which is just Western Latin. Okay. Title. What you stick between these tags is what shows up in the tab of your browser. So if we go back to our browser real quick, the stuff that shows up here, like Atom or Bourbon, Indiana Wikipedia or Description Wikipedia Redesign or HTML Google Slides, that's stuff that is being written in the title. Okay, so what I want you to put is your name, oops, and then WikiScrape, whatever you're calling the project. WikiScrape. All right, now the next thing we need to add in here, and you can separate it by space. Spaces don't really matter in here. What I do want to be the same is this indentation, right? So it does need to be line up. It is difficult to see. There's some really faint lines. You see the lines? Those are those indent guides. Right? So if you turn indent guides on in your editor settings, you should see them. That'll show you that you have everything indented correctly. That's what I want to see. So now what we're going to do is link to our CSS file. Okay, so I'm going to write link, get that little drop down again, hit enter, and it gives you that link syntax. It's a style sheet. If you hit tab, it will jump over to the file path. If you change the name of your CSS to something besides master.css, you need to change that now in this file path. So if you called it style.css or wikipedia.css or wikiscrape, whatever you called it, right? Change that file name. Make sure it's the same. Whatever it says over here for your CSS file is what needs to go right here. Okay? Also, what we need to get rid of is this /. This can cause bugs in some browsers. It's not consistent, but sometimes it does. It can make it so the browser can't actually find the file. All right, so I usually just delete it. CSS master.css. Okay. What this file path is doing is it's telling the browser that inside the same directory as index, there is a folder called CSS, and inside that folder, there's a file called master.css, and that's what it wants you to load, or that's what it should load. You guys have a question, Jordan? You guys good? Okay. All right. Okay. That's all we need for now in here. So we can come down to the body, tab in twice so you're indented correctly. You're one tab in from the body. And then this is where we're going to start writing some HTML. But before we do that, we got to go look at our page and decide how we want to break it up. Okay. Everybody good? I'm going to move on. All right. So looking at how they've broken things up. They generally have like this, Bourbon, Indiana, and then a little blurb about bourbon. Then the nav for bourbon. Over here they have a sidebar with like all this data on bourbon. We're going to talk about how we want to do that at some point. History is then its own section. Geography is its own section. Education, which is like nothing. A town has a lending library, the Bourbon Public Library. Congratulations, Bourbon, Indiana. What? This is their municipal office building. It's also their fire station, apparently. Okay, Bourbon. Then they have references, which are just links, and then an external link. So okay. So there's not a lot here. oh, demographics, sorry, geography, demographics, education. So demographics is the biggest one. We've got a little nav here that we can go through as well. So in terms of sections, we've got our first section. We're going to call this like our intro section. Okay. We're going to do something with it. Probably something that's usually called like a hero image. Does anybody know what a hero image is? No? Okay, that's fine. You'll figure it out here in a second. It's a style. It's a way of styling a page that's pretty common. Like once I do it, you'll recognize it. So we'll probably do something like that for this little intro, and then we'll have a section for history, and a section for geography, and a section for demographics, a couple subsections for that, censuses, sensi, I don't know, education, so like a bathroom hall pass that you guys are sharing. Sorry. Mary came back and she like a little, so I was just like, anyway. Education, references, okay. So a couple different sections here, and we're gonna write these in now. You may notice there's a little blue dot up here. That means I've made changes and I haven't saved them. Okay, if you see that blue dot, you need to hit Command S, save your file, so it saves your changes. Okay, if you make a change and you go back to your browser to look at it to see how it looks and it doesn't show up, come back and make sure that little blue dot is not there. Because if you don't save your change, it won't show up in your browser. All right. So let's do our sections now. So I know I'm gonna have one section. This is gonna be my first one. I'm gonna just I'm gonna contain everything with sections, or structure everything with sections. When we're writing HTML, think of it as like building a house. You build from the foundation up. You build from the outside in, right? You don't try to build and finish the kitchen before you move on to the bathrooms, before you move on, et cetera, right? You build the structure of the house first. You clad it, and then you put a roof on it. You weather tight it, then you do the inside. Does that make sense? So doing the outside, doing the structure, and putting a roof and making it weather tight is HTML. Doing all the interior decorating and painting on the exterior is the CSS. All right. The CSS can change how the outside of the house looks or the inside of the house looks and feels, but not terribly drastically. Well, that's not true. You can change it quite a bit with CSS, but the analogy still stands. Okay. All right, so you got to just build it up piece by piece. Don't try to finish one section of it and then move on to the next section. In HTML, everything that comes first affects everything after. All right, the structure, the flow of the HTML is dependent on everything that comes before it. All right, in CSS, it's not that way. Everything is self-contained declaration blocks. All right, it doesn't really matter what comes before it, and it doesn't matter what order they're in at all. In HTML, order is very important. Everything is top to bottom, left to right. Okay? Generally more top to bottom than anything else. But anyway, section. So section. Now, when we're writing all these different elements, we need a way to be able to tell the elements apart from each other, to individualize these elements. We do that in two ways, classes and IDs. All right? They are, for all practical purposes, more or less the same. They have some differences. You can put multiple classes on an element. You can only put one ID on an element. In terms of practice, classes are used for general things like shared characteristics between elements, and IDs are used for specific characteristics on an element. Generally, characteristics that only one element has. And when I say characteristics, I'm saying CSS. Okay. So we're going to call this section .hero. So this is an emit formula. Writing section.hero is an emit formula. When I write this, when I hit tab, it's going to generate the HTML for me. That dot is a symbol for class. It's the CSS symbol for class. Okay. So what I'm really writing here is HTML element section class hero. Okay. So when I hit tab, it makes it for me. So I don't have to write all that out. This is why I like emit. Okay, and that's a really simple emit formula. We can get really crazy with emit, but do you see the benefit now of emit, right? Like it makes this much easier. Plus, now I don't worry about forgetting to put my angle brackets in at all. They're there, or forgetting my closing tag. Students, like, I know when students write out everything, they don't use emit because they forget their closing tags all the time, which breaks your HTML constantly. Okay, use emit. It'll keep you from making mistakes. All right. So hero image, I'm going to hit enter so that I indent correctly. A couple of things I need inside of my hero image. I'm going to go back to Wikipedia to look at this. I'm going to need an actual image, and then I want to use this blurb of this text and probably a nav. We're going to make this stuff into a nav right here. So I'm going to grab this little bit of text. Oh, I'm going to need two things. I'm going to need like a big thing of text called Bourbon, Indiana, and a little thing of text underneath it. That is this little blurb. So the order in which I want to see these things. If I want the big thing, then that needs to come first. That needs to be an element first. So I'm going to make it a P element. This is a paragraph element. There are different ways of encoding this in just HTML using heading tags like H1 through H6. Hopefully you guys got these in CSC 121. Who took CSC 121? It should be everybody. Sam, no? You're in it right now? Okay. Did you guys do this already? Sam, did you not take it?
No.
Are you a BIA major?
No.
How have you not taken it and gotten into this class?
I don't know.
I haven't taken it.
It's a prereq for this class, isn't it?
No.
Oh, it's not? Oh, it used to be. Okay. All right, never mind. That's good then. You don't have any bad habits. So heading tags. And you know, don't get me wrong. I love Brian and you know, I tolerate Jack's dad, but no, I'm kidding. They just learned HTML at a different time than I did, and they don't do it all the way I do it. So everybody has a different approach to it. Mine is just more current. I'll just throw that out there. Are you shaking your head for? It is rough. You can tell your dad I said that. I tease him all the time. His personal website is all tables, which is terrible. Yeah. Every time I give him such crap for it. That and when the Cubs lose. Those are the two times I got to dig in. So anyway, there's certain like things that we can encode into the HTML to provide some style in case your CSS breaks. And one of those things is using H tags, H1 through 6, to make big text or little text. These are headings, essentially. H1 is the biggest, because it has the smallest number. I don't know. H1 is the biggest, H6 is the smallest, and then paragraph tag would be your default paragraph size. I generally just use paragraph tags because no one in their right mind really ever turns off their CSS, and the portion of society that has like bandwidth that is not going to let CSS load is so tiny as to be negligible. But if you want to be nice and standards compliant, use your H tags. So we'll just do an H1 for this one. H1, this is going to be our big text of Bourbon, Indiana, or for me at least, Bourbon, Indiana. Yours will be different. You can work along now, or you can just watch what I'm doing. I am recording it, so you can always go back. It's just at this point, because our content is going to be different, like your structure will probably be different. And I don't want you to get lost, okay? If you're trying to like write your own and then look back up and write your own and stuff. And we have 25 minutes to get through this, so. All right, H1, and then the paragraph tag for the little bit of text, which I copied already. There we go. Bourbon is a town in Bourbon Township, Marshall County, Indiana, United States, blah, blah, blah. All right, so this is great. That's all I need. I am going to put an image behind it, which is going to be this image, but I don't need to put that image in the HTML. We're going to add that image in with the CSS. Okay, so that's my first section. Now my second section is going to be this history bit. Yeah. One of the really common things with web design that you'll see, and it's not evident here, but if you go to something like Pinterest and do web design, you're going to see a lot of really common kinds of styles, like this sort of horizontal sectioning on one page. Notice everything is in a column. Right? Everything has a shared margin, nothing breaks this. This kind of design is exceedingly common. And it's not because people are boring, well, not entirely because people are boring, but it's because this is an effective way to design web pages for information. Lots of restaurants, of course. Restaurants do this a lot. This is doing it as well, like all this stuff is inside of a column. They don't have as much content, and they break it up every now and then. That's a little awkward right there. That's terrible. And then they're going back and forth here, which I don't necessarily like. But everything, you can tell everything is sort of broken up into these horizontal sections. We're going to kind of do that, but with less graphics. The graphics kind of get in the way. This is definitely doing it. That's doing it as well. So we're going to kind of approach it in a similar way. So our next section will be history. So the hero image, a hero image is an image that stretches all the way across. It touches both the left and right hand side of the browser window. And is probably about, like when you first load a page, when you load the page and you see it in your browser window like this, it takes up probably 2/3 at least of your browser window, of the height of your browser window. Okay, does that make sense? All right. So then the rest of this stuff, the rest of this information, I want to include into a column, a general content column. Now if we were to ignore all these links on the left and this stuff on the right, we would have this one column of content that we pay attention to, this main content column. Okay, and that's what we're going to set up for the rest of our sections to live inside of. Okay, so I want to set up one container, one element that I put all my other sections into, so that I only have to write this content width column once. I don't have to write it again. All right, so I only have to say that everything is this wide one time. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to make this as a div. My div is my general container. All right, div class content. It's where all my content's going to live. So div.content, hit tab, generates the HTML for you, space, and then we'll do our next section, section.history. Again, I'm just looking at my history here, and I just have some paragraph tags, so I'm going to stick some paragraph tags in here. Oh, come on. Copy the text. Notice I have 2 paragraphs here. We're going to make those 2 separate p tags. Okay, 2 separate paragraph tags. So p, and then p. I feel like I'm talking to my son, trying to get him to go to the bathroom. P. All right. So my 2 paragraphs, Now I can, and we're not using breaks in our HTML to do any spacing. Okay, take those out if you put them in already. That's that section, and we can do another section, geography. You can call it, you can write it all out, you can shorten it to geo, whatever makes sense to you, whatever you want to remember. All right, so 1 line of that, so that's 1 p tag. Oops. There's another line. It's almost 1 square mile. That's so great. I'm so proud. All right, and then the next section is demographics. Demog. Oh, I keep forgetting the actual, this is my bad. I keep forgetting the headings for these. So we're going to do an H2 and call this one history. And then in geo, we'll do an H2. So consistency, you know, when you size things the same, they take on the same level of importance in the mind of your viewer. This is information hierarchy. So the title is bigger than the main title is bigger. The Bourbon Indiana is an H1, so it's going to be pretty big. These are smaller because they're subheadings, and then the paragraph tags and the paragraph, the body copy is even smaller. All right, so our first paragraph. And here's the fun thing with Emmet. So I have 2 more paragraphs to write and then another little subheading to do. Shit, I have a subheading here as well. I forgot about that one. So we'll do an H4, and we'll call this one 2010 census. And actually, you know what we're gonna do? So if you find yourself doing this, like, so I have an H2 here, I have my H4 here, my P tag here, I kind of want to count, I want to group this H4 title is 2010 census with the content of the 2010 census. So like all this stuff here is the content for the 2010 census, and I want to group it all together in the HTML. All right. So what I'm going to do is I've already written it out. I'm going to indent it. I'm going to highlight it all. I'm going to indent it once. So command square bracket. Come back to the beginning. Bump it down one line. Come here and just make a div and call this 210 census. Don't capitalize it. All right. You can call it whatever you want. But then we need to take the closing tag and stick it. This is now grouping the H4 and the P into a container separately from the H2. It's just grouping. Like if you're like grouping layers in Photoshop or grouping objects in Illustrator, it's the same thing. All right, do another P tag. Now, here's one of the fun things about Emmet. So I have like, how many? 2 more paragraph tags to write in here. Okay. So instead of writing P tag, dumping my text in, and then writing P tag again and dumping my text in, I know I need 2 more paragraph tags, so I'm just going to go ahead and make them. So P times 2, so P asterisk 2 will give me 2 P tags. Okay, I'm only going to do a little bit more, and then I'll start doing some CSS to show you. Okay. Shit, we're almost done. All right, we'll just keep going. So then I want to, so that's my 2010 census. I want to do my then 2000 census. So div.2000 census, and then I need a H4, I think I made that. Yeah, H4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraph tags. So we'll do H4, oops, H4, crap, I forget what the Emmet is for sibling. Plus, it's plus. Here's a Emmet cheat sheet. So if you just write Emmet cheat sheet, you'll find all the different Emmet things for cheat sheet. So if we add a plus, that'll make a sibling. So plus P times 4. So this little formula here is going to make one H4 element, not a capital P, one H4 element, and then 4 paragraph sibling elements. Does that make sense? Fun thing about this is I can actually put some content in there too by doing square brackets. Oh, that didn't work. Sorry, it's curly braces. Okay. To the end. No. Dot. Wait. Should have worked. Oh, it did work. Okay. No, I didn't think it did. Cool. So there's my H4 with my 2000 census, and then I can just come back here and copy my text. Okay. So much fun.
Sorry, goal to make it look like exactly the same.
Nope. The goal is to make it look better, more readable. So, okay, so I got a bunch of stuff in here. Let's look at it now and kind of see what it looks like. So if you right-click on in the page after you've saved it, of course, you don't have your little blue dot up at the top. Go to Open in Browser, and this is roughly what it should look like. Why does my H1 look the same size as my H2s? Oh, okay. Does this make sense? Kind of what I've done? What are you laughing at?
Just remembered that my computer defaults, so the whole page is encompassing.
Nice. Nice. So, okay. So the reason why we have the bigger text is because of those H tags. Why my H1 is the same size as my H2, I don't know. One of the things we're going to be doing a lot is we're going to be using the browser inspector to figure out problems. All right. If you're using, I don't care what browser you use, as long as you're not using like Edge You know, don't use Microsoft Edge, please. Safari, Firefox, Chrome, it's okay. They're all more or less the same, kind of. I use Safari and Firefox mostly for development. I test in Chrome if I come across problems just to see if it's a problem that's consistent across all browsers or if it's specific to one browser. If you are in Safari and you do not see this develop menu up at the top between bookmarks and windows, you need to come to Safari Preferences, go to Advanced, and at the very bottom, click on Show Develop Menu in Menu Bar. Okay, they turn off their developer tools by default because they figure the average person doesn't need them. Which they're right. They're right. The average. My grandma doesn't need developer tools. Oh God, no, not at all. Yeah, no. So once that shows up, you're going to see a whole bunch of stuff. You can just ignore it. We're going to use our context menu just by right-clicking on the page more than anything else. And at the very bottom, there's a thing called Inspect Element. That's what we want. Click on that. That's going to pop up your inspector. Now, generally, your inspector is probably going to be down here at first. Is anybody using something besides something different than Firefox or Safari? Using Chrome. Who's using Chrome? Raise your hand. All right, I'll open up Chrome. Chrome is such a system hog that I don't usually open it up. Chrome is just like a little OS that runs inside of your OS. All right, let me open up my page. Okay. Right-click on it. It's the same thing. Go to Inspect. It's going to show up. They're going to look pretty much the same. Okay? Because they're all built off of the same technology. If you want to move it from the side to the bottom, click on the three dots over here in the top right. Little bottom icon. There we go. Console's not yelling at us, which is good, but our Safari console was yelling at us. What was it saying? Talking about the favicon. All right, cool. Don't care about that. All right. So for the most part, you know, if we highlight over, what we're going to see are a couple different views here. We're going to see our HTML. This is called our document object model, or DOM. We can just call it the HTML. And then over here, you're going to see probably your styles. This little box, this is called a box model. And this is talking about, this shows you any like spacings that you have. And we do spacing in a couple different ways. We do it through padding and margin, and also through border thickness, which is like stroke in Illustrator. This middle box, when I highlight over it, the stuff that shows up as blue, that's the actual dimensions of this element. All right, this is how much space this element is taking up on the page. All right. So let's jump and do a little bit of CSS while we're looking at it, so we can pretty it up a tiny bit. So let's do our hero image. That's kind of one of our more challenging things. So in our CSS file, I'm going to write body, and then I'm going to open my. In order to write CSS, we do declaration blocks. So you target either a class or an element, okay? By writing that element or that class. Like right now, this is an element because it doesn't have a symbol in front of it. All right, if it had a dot, it would be a class. Notice the color changes. If it was an ID, it would have a hash or an octothorpe. That's the actual name of this symbol, octothorpe. But obviously, that doesn't really roll off the tongue. So people call it a pound sign, or my generation does. Your generation probably calls it a hashtag, right? Yeah, hash. It's not a hash, it's just the body. Okay, red means it's an element. Notice all the elements over here are red as well, right? The color that you have in your HTML will generally match the color, if you have a good syntax highlighting theme picked, should match the color you have over in your CSS, all right? So in the body, we're gonna just do a couple things. We're gonna say padding 0, margin 0, and then we're gonna do font family, sans serif. You should have like little autocomplete pop-ups showing up. If that happens and it's selecting what you want, just hit enter and it will autofill it for you. This will save you lots and lots of typing. Okay. I'm declaring a sans serif font family right away in the body. So I'm setting, what I'm doing is I'm setting characteristics for the body. This is called a declaration block. Okay. Element, open curly brace, closing curly brace, everything in between is a characteristic. It's a setting for that element. See you later. So what we're doing here is we're saying everything in the body should have padding 0, margin 0, and font family sans serif. And what this is going to do, notice the spacing right here that's been added to this page. That's not spacing I added. That's spacing the browser itself adds through something called the user agent style sheet. This is default styling that the browser does. And it gets annoying because it can cause problems. So we just take it off. Okay? Just tell it, don't worry about that stuff. Just take it off. All right. And then notice the font is like New Times Roman or something. It's a serifed font. It's got the little squiggly bits coming off the ends of the letters. Don't really want that. You can have it. It's fine. You know, whatever your preference is. I don't want it, so I'm taking it off by setting the font family to a sans serif font. Okay, hit save. Come back to the page. Reload the page. See how things change? See it bumped over to the right. Oops. Bumped over to the right. It's a different font now, etc. Still don't know why those are the same size. Oh, because no. Here we go. Oh, for some reason it wants it to be 1.5 rems or m's. Yeah, it's making them the same size. That's really weird. Okay, anyway, doesn't matter. Okay, so with this hero image, let me see if I can find an example of a hero image really quick. This is a hero image. This image here that we see right here. Let me get a bigger version of this. Oops, it's been removed. Okay. So how this whole image like stretches all the way across, that's called a hero image. Then it has text in the middle. Okay. So that is how we've written this. It's going to be a background image that's applied to this section. So the entire container will be this background image. Okay. And then this text that's in the middle, or the text that's inside the inside of this container, is the text that will show up in the middle of that image. All right. How this looks in practice, if I can do this in 6 minutes, let's see. So we're going to say class hero. If you want to be really specific, you could write section class hero, but it's okay to just write hero. Open up our declaration block. I'm going to say background image, URL, because we're going to load an image. So we're going to find, you don't have to work with me. Okay, we're going to load this image. Should be able to just drag it over there and drop it, but nope, you can't. Okay. You can right click on it, and if you copy project path, not full path, but project path, that will give you the right path to that image. Oh, except it's not the right path. Okay. Got to put it in quotes. But this path is wrong. This path will not load an image. Does anybody know why? This path will not load the right image. This path is telling it to, Jack, do you have a, you want to take, okay. This path is telling it to look inside of the CSS folder for an image, for a folder called images. It's saying look around you for something called images. And there's no folder inside of CSS that's called images. That folder's inside of the main folder, right? So we have to tell the CSS file to go out, or the browser to tell it to go out of the CSS folder. We do that very simply by saying .. That .. .. at the beginning of the file path tells it to go up one folder level into the whatever the container folder is. Make sense? Okay. Most people forget that, but that's really, 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 really important. Right? Know where you are with your files. All right, that's our background image. Let's see, background size. No, we don't need to do that. I think is it position? Yeah, position, center, background, repeat, no repeat. Background size. I think we're going to do contain. Yeah, we'll do contain. All right. So these three things, we're telling it to position the image in the center of the container. Okay. We're telling it not to repeat. So if the image is smaller than the bounds of the container, so if it's smaller than the size of the container, It won't repeat. It won't like make another image. And then if we tell it to contain, that means stretch the image out to fill the container. If I remember correctly. We'll see. I mix up contain and cover. And we don't have a width declared yet. So right now, if we go look at this, we're not going to see anything. Oh, yeah, there it is. Look at you. Look at you. Because that's the height of the image. Okay, so contain is the wrong one. I won't cover. All right, so this, there we go. So that's what it should look like. The image stretching, if you use cover, the image should stretch all the way across that element. All right. The height of the element at this point is determined by the text that is inside of it. All right. This is not what we want. All right. What we want to do is declare a height and a width for it so that it can be a certain size. So now we're going to come and say, we're going to say width. We're going to say be 100%. So it'll always be 100% of its parent, and its parent is body. Okay, does that make sense? Whenever you write a percentage, it's always going to be that percentage of its parent. Its height, though, we're going to say be 60% of the viewport height, which is VH. So 60% of the browser window. That's the viewport. All right, so 60 VH is 60% of the viewport height. That's how you read it. Not for when you're doing viewport height. Make sense? Okay. Now if we go look at it, gosh, stop. All right. There we go. It doesn't do anything because I didn't save my stuff. Look at that blue dot. All right, save your stuff. There we go. That's 60% of my viewport height right now because I have that open. It squished it, right? So how you can fix that is instead of just saying height, you can say the minimum height. The absolute smallest it can get is 60% of the viewport height. Okay. If you want to make that a size independent, like you want to keep a certain ratio, you want to make that a size independent of the actual viewport height. Maybe you want it to be a ratio of the width to always have it be a certain size, certain dimension, right? Just change your unit to viewport width. Just because it's the height doesn't mean you can't use width as your unit. So this means that however wide your browser is, this will be that many pixels tall. 60% of that. Right? So if your browser is 2,000 pixels wide, right, then your height is going to be what? 1,200 pixels. I had to do that really quick for some reason. It was an easy math problem, but it took me a problem. It took me a little while. So if we save that, it's pretty much the same size. Is it really? Oh, I didn't save it. There we go. Should make it a little bigger. That's pretty gigantic. That's a little too big. It's not really what I want at all. I think we're going to go back to viewport height of 60. Let's actually make that 70. That's better. But we have this like goofy white space up here. And what is causing that white space? Well, I'm glad you asked. We're going to go to our inspector, and then we are going to grab our targeter, which is this little square with the arrow if you're in Chrome. And then you're going to highlight over things. You'll be like, oh, this bourbon tag has this weird little orange bar up there that is pretty much the same dimension as that white space. What is that? Well, click on it. So it selects it. Come over to your styles and scroll down to your box model. What's orange on here? Your margin. That's a margin, right? So we got to take the margin off of the top of the bourbon in order to not have that stupid white space there. All right. Sorry. Oh, we should quit here. But we're just going to take the margin off really top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down and make another block. We're going to say class hero, and then we're going to say h1, space h1. And what this is doing is targeting the h1 inside of the element class hero. And we're going to say margin 0. We're going to set all the margins, which there are 4 of, and we'll talk about them on Monday. But we're going to set all the margins to 0. Command S to save it. Go back and reload. Boom, jumps to the top. That's what we want. That's the starting point of where we want to be. Okie doke. All right, I know that's a lot.